Welcome to Hockey Wiz Talks podcast. Today I preview the West Division in the NHL. Before I start with the preview for the West Division, I want to fix a mistake in my previous podcast. The Dallas Stars will be part of the Central Division, not the St. Louis Blues, who are part of the West Division. The West Division will consist of the following teams: Anaheim Ducks, Arizona Coyotes, Colorado Avalanche, LA Kings, Minnesota Wild, San Jose Sharks, St. Louis Blues, and Vegas Golden Knights. This is how the standings will look like. In first place will be the Colorado Avalanche, then in second place will be the Vegas Golden Knights. In third place will be the St. Louis Blues. In fourth place will be the Arizona Coyotes. In fifth place will be the Minnesota Wild. In sixth place will be the Anaheim Ducks. In seventh will be the San Jose Sharks. And in last place in the West Division will be the LA Kings. And now a word from our sponsor. Check out my hockey blog at hockeywiztalkshockey.blogspot.com. Also visit my scouting blog, hockeywiz77scouting.com. The Colorado Avalanche are the best team in this division in terms of raw talent. They have all the potential in the world to be legit contenders for the Stanley Cup. Not only does Colorado have the elite top-end talent, they have great role players that can chip in offensively and defensively as well. The additions of Brendan Saad in the offseason gives the Avalanche a savvy veteran winger with Stanley Cup experience to play alongside Nazem Kadri. Besides the players already on the team, they are loaded with blue-chip prospects that are waiting to crack the roster. Keep an eye on Tyson Jost and JT Compher. If these two players can take their game to the next level, Colorado will be the Cup favorite. Adding Devon Toews to an already loaded defensive core gives the Avs more defensive depth and adds more offensive punch from the back end. Philip Grubauer will tandem with Pavel Francouz in goal. They will both need to stay healthy for the Avalanche to win this division. The Colorado Avalanche will most likely finish first in the West Division, but in a close second will be the Vegas Golden Knights. The Vegas Golden Knights will be the biggest threat to the Colorado Avalanche in the West Division. They really don't have a weakness on the team, and with the additions of Alex Pietrangelo, the team becomes a Stanley Cup favorite as well. To get Alex Pietrangelo, the Golden Knights had to move Paul Stastny and Nate Schmidt, which is a hefty cost. But it is worth it because Pietrangelo essentially replaces Nate Schmidt, while Cody Glass is more than capable of replacing Paul Stastny. Vegas has 4 good offensive lines, which stars Mark Stone and Max Pacioretty, as well as Jonathan Marchessault and Riley Smith. Keep an eye on Cody Glass, who is expected to play with Max Pacioretty and Mark Stone. He should have a great year. The Golden Knights are going to be a sound defensive team with 2 very good goalies in Robin Lehner and Marc-Andre Fleury, who should split goaltending duties. The Vegas Golden Knights and Colorado Avalanche will battle it out for supremacy in the West Division, but the St. Louis Blues will also be in the mix and should not be ignored. The St. Louis Blues should not be taken lightly just because they are in the same division as Colorado and Vegas. After all, they still have the majority of the players from the team that won the Stanley Cup in 2019. Knowing that they would lose ex-captain Alex Pietrangelo to Vegas in free agency, the Blues went out and signed Torrey Krug, then named Ryan O'Reilly the new captain of the team. The Blues can still roll 4 lines, although their scoring won't be as good without Vladimir Tarasenko, who will be out at least until March. Mike Hoffman was brought in on a PTO. He should make the team and should be a source of good secondary scoring. Robert Thomas will need to step up and bury more of his scoring chances. He is due for a breakout year playing with Braden Shen and Jaden Schwartz. Keep an eye on Jordan Kyrou, who showed flashes of his scoring potential last year in the playoffs. The defensive play of the Blues might drop off a bit because Krug is not the same caliber of defenseman Pietrangelo is. The Blues lack a true number 1 defenseman, unless Parenko can step up and become that true number 1 defenseman. The trade of Jake Allen opens up the door for Velioso to be the backup to Jordan Binnington. They will both be called upon to play well. Because the St. Louis Blues happen to be in the same division as 2 powerhouse teams, the best they can do is lock up the 3rd seed in that division, which is theirs to lose. The Arizona Coyotes might be a surprise team in the West Division. While they most certainly can't compete with the top 3 teams in their division, their goaltending might be good enough to sneak them into the playoffs in the Western Conference. The Arizona Coyotes lost 2 key players in Taylor Hall and Derek Stepan, although they should be able to replace them because of their young talent coming up. Phil Kessel had a down year last season. I expect him to be more comfortable in Arizona this season, playing alongside Clayton Keller and the newly acquired Derek Brassard. Clayton Keller will also need to step up offensively if the Coyotes are to make a playoff push. Barrett Hayton is expected to play a huge role on the Arizona Coyotes this season. If they are to go anywhere, he needs to have a breakout year. The Coyotes still have a solid defense, which is built around OEL and Jacob Chicherin, who can only get better. Darcy Kemper and Antti Ranta are the backbones of this team. They are surprisingly an effective tandem that always manage to keep the Coyotes in games. Outside of the powerhouse teams in this division, Arizona is the only team that could make a playoff push. Visit my Facebook page at HockeyWiz777 and my Instagram at HockeyWiz777. The Minnesota Wild most likely won't make the playoffs this season, but they aren't bad enough to be the worst team in the division either, so they are stuck in no man's land. Minnesota has a pretty different forward core from the one they had last season. They shipped out Eric Stahl and Luke Kunin, while bringing in Kirill Kaprizov, Marcus Johansson, Nick Bonino, and Nick Bjugstad. While Kirill Kaprizov is technically a rookie, he could still end up the Wild's leading scorer this season, playing alongside Kevin Fiala and Marcus Johansson. On defense, their top four is pretty solid and will prevent them from finishing at the bottom of the standings. Cam Talbot was signed in free agency to tandem with Alex Stalock in goal. This could be an underrated tandem if Talbot can regain his 2016-17 form. The Minnesota Wild are the definition of a mediocre team, and because of that, they might stay afloat for some time, but ultimately, they won't be good enough to make the playoffs. The San Jose Sharks are now in a rebuild stage despite having some star talent in their lineup. They still have Brent Burns, Erik Karlsson, and Logan Couture, but they lost all their depth that made their team so good in the past. The Sharks picked up Devin Dubnyk and Ryan Donato in the offseason in a trade with Minnesota and signed Patrick Marleau and Matt Nieto in free agency. Logan Couture, Thomas Hertl, and Erik Karlsson all missed significant time due to injury last season. If the Sharks want to have a better year this season, those players will need to stay healthy. Kevin Labanc has been projected to have a breakout season for 2 years now. He needs to be more consistent if he wants to be a top 6 winger in the NHL. The defense is still solid. Granted, Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson can still perform at an elite level, and Marc-Edouard Vlasic can have a bounce-back year. Martin Jones had a terrible 2019-20 season, so bringing in Devin Dubnyk to tandem with him will take some pressure off him. Both Jones and Dubnyk will need to be good if the Sharks want to be a better team this season. It is very likely that the San Jose Sharks finish near the bottom of the standings and the third worst team in their division. The Anaheim Ducks haven't made any major changes to their roster offensively, unless one of their young prospects like Isaac Lundestrom or Maxime Comtois crack the roster out of camp. For that reason, they will not have enough firepower to compete in the West Division. There are 3 players that need to take their game to the next level in order for the Ducks to improve this season. Sam Steele, Danton Heinen, and Sonny Milano. These are 3 young players that have massive upside to them. Ryan Getzlaf is a free agent in 2021, so it could be possible for the Ducks to move him at the trade deadline. The Ducks added Kevin Shattenkirk in free agency, who should provide some offensive punch from the blue line. Shattenkirk rounds out the top 4. Shattenkirk rounds out a top 4 that already includes Hampus Lindholm, Cam Fowler, and Josh Manson, which is already a really good D-core. John Gibson is one of the best goalies in the league. Unfortunately, he is stuck on a bad team. He will likely get a heavy workload as his backup is Ryan Miller. If not for being in the same division as the LA Kings, the Anaheim Ducks might be the worst team in this division. The LA Kings should be the worst team in the West Division, despite having tons of great young prospects in the system. Quinton Byfield was selected 2nd overall in the 2020 NHL Draft and has the potential to be a franchise-changing player. But it would be best for his development to play another year in the OHL and try to make the team next season. In the offseason, the Kings added Andreas Athanasiou via free agency and acquired Elias Anderson in a trade with the New York Rangers. The Kings still have savvy veterans on their team like Anze Kopitar, Jeff Carter, and Dustin Brown that can fill the stat sheet. Keep an eye on Gabriel Velarde, who is centering the second line alongside Adrian Kempe and Jeff Carter. Oli Mata was acquired via a trade from the Chicago Blackhawks. He will be joining a defensive core, which will be adding Tobias Bornfot and Mikey Anderson to the lineup. Jonathan Quick will split goaltending duties with Cal Peterson, who played pretty well last season. I expect the LA Kings to end up as the worst team in this division, and one of the worst teams in the league as well. Listen to my other podcasts on soundcloud.com/HockeyWiz777. It was pretty easy to predict the top 3 teams in the West Division, but the other teams in this division besides LA could finish anywhere from 4 to 7 in the division. In my next podcast, I talk about breakout players and sleepers in fantasy hockey.